Hi, good day. My name is Nyimas Gabriella Dwi Gensi, majoring international relations from Presiden University, and I'm from Diplomacy 4. Today, I would like to present the topic of my research methodology, and the title is The Sweden Effort to Improving Gender Equality in International Aspect through the Swedish Feminist Foreign Policy. The first I would like to explain about the background. In the background, you may see that here is the art, the research question, independent variable, dependent variable, what is this in stand for, and the importance of choosing topic. The research question itself, how Sweden bring the impact in EU countries to improve gender equality through Swedish feminist foreign policy. And the independent variable, Swedish feminist foreign policy. The dependent variable is improving gender equality in international aspect. What is this in stand for? The system used by Sweden in the formation of feminist government, which is currently the first country in the world to become a feminist government. The Swedish government pursue what it explicitly called a feminist foreign policy to promoting gender equality and women's rights nationally and internationally. Gender equality is an important issue in subject international relations. Difference in roles and characteristics labeled with gender produce social no roles between men and women. This can show that gender is a difference not only in personal relationship but in social structure which create inequality between men and women. The importance of chosen topic. Sweden is a country that has the highest female employee with equal distribution in education, work, recreation, and position of power would be group composed of 40% until 60% women to men. As the first country to adopt a system of feminist government, Sweden has a great opportunity to introduce an understanding of gender equality and women's rights in international aspect. There are still many countries that have inequality in the subject of gender. However, Sweden cooperates with the United Nations in improving gender equality. The UN encouraged Sweden to implement gender equality and is able to make Sweden as a significant level. Not only the United Nations, the European Union also give impact to Sweden in formalized Swedish foreign policy. And the next is the review of related literature. The first, I would like to explain the review of related literature of the IV, Swedish feminist, which is the Swedish feminist foreign policy. This literature will focus on Swedish feminist foreign policy and also talk about Sweden government towards feminist foreign policy. In this literature, there are some arguments that an idea from the author that Sweden is pursuing an active foreign policy and has a reputation as a value and norm-driven. And the second is, every journal has the same point that explain about the 6 focus areas or priorities of the action plan of feminist foreign policy, which are women's human rights, the freedom of physical, psychological, and sexual violence, participation in prevention and resolution of conflicts, political participation, economic empowerment, and the last is sexual and reproductive rights and health. And there are the Ministry of Sweden actively to promoting FFA in both bilateral and multilateral relations, and the last is Sweden has sought to be normative foreign policy. And the second is the review of related literature of the dependent variable, which is improving gender equality in international aspect. The first is, this study will look at the relation between the gender equality and economic development. The relation of gender equality on the political, socio-economic sphere showed a significant association between the gender equality and economic development. And the next is the index benchmark gender on economic, political, education, and health. And the last of the DIV is the international effort to improve the status of women and gender equality in order to achieve reduction in the level of conflict differences between women and men. And the last is the review of related literature, both of the independent variable and dependent variable. All journals focus on the feminist foreign policy in European Union countries after Sweden have adopted gender and feminist informed approaches to their security and foreign policy. Sweden, as the first country that adopted its feminist foreign policy in 2014, is based on the idea that gender equality is a point security and foreign policy. The second is Swedish feminist foreign policy as a strong supporting women's involvement in the conflict solution process, that involving women in the implementation of international treaties and women's role in the post-conflict reconstruction period with their support for the United Nations Security Council resolution, or known as UNSCR, in 2000, and related resolution on women, peace and security, or as known as WPS. And the last is the European state has important role in realization of the women, peace and security agenda, or like I said before, the WPS agenda. In the comprehensive approach to the implementation of UNCR 1325 and 1820 on women, peace and security establishes an explicit link between gender and security for the first time, plans to integrate WPS into the external European Union. So next, I would like to explain about the theoretical framework. You can see in here is the conceptual diagram. For the conceptual diagram is the IV plus the IV, which is the Swedish feminist foreign policy, and the improving gender equality international aspect. The both will be merged and become into the feminist constructivism. For the conceptual definition of the IV, feminist foreign policy is the policy of a state that defines its interaction with other state and movement in manner that prioritizes gender equality and enshrines the human rights of women and other traditionally marginalized groups, allocate significant resources to dominate power structure across all of its levels of influence, informed by the voices of feminist activists, groups, and movement. And for the operational definition of IV, Swedish feminist foreign policy can be measured by the working method that called as the 3Rs. The 3 overall call is the first is rights, human rights, also women rights. Every woman must have equal rights with man. For example, like rights in equality of inheritance, rights in possession, education, health, and even the socialization. This attempts to eliminate gender discrimination in social life. And the second is representation. Representation intends to target women and participate in decision-making tables with the intention of representing women to determine whether women are allocated resource or are treated the same as men. And the last is resources. Resources means how the resources are allocated between men and women. And the next is the conceptual definition of the DIV, dependent variable. Gender equality arises because of the term of gender inequality, which is a hierarchical gender relationship where the existence of men rests above women, and women are always considered less valuable or inappropriate in everything. Gender equality itself means that men and women have the same position or condition for human rights, contributing to economic, social, and political aspect. Gender equality means not discriminating between sex to provide justice in social life. And for the operational definition, measuring gender equality by using 5 different index, namely, which are is Gender Development Index or GDI, Gender Empowerment Measure or GEM, and Gender Equality Index or GEI, and Gender Gap Index, and the last is Social Institution and Gender Index or known as SIGI. And the next is the relation between IV and DIV. Like I said before in the conceptual diagram, we can see that feminist constructivism theory is an international relation theory which builds upon the theory of constructivism. Feminist constructivism focuses upon the study of how ideas about gender influence global politics. It is the communication between the two post-colonial theories, feminism and constructivism, and how they both share the similar key ideas in creating gender equality globally. And why I chose this theory, because how Sweden tried to influence their feminist foreign policy to improve gender equality internationally. And the last is for this is the scope and limitation of study. I chose the 2014 until 2020 become the time frame of this case because the growing and impact of the Swedish feminist foreign policy happened in that time. The Swedish feminist foreign policy declared by Sweden in October 2014. Sweden also launched their handbook and that mentioned 6 external objectives in the 2015 until 2018 action plan and handbook Swedish foreign policy, feminist foreign policy 2019 until 2022 that will focus on the plan sets out the direction that work on the feminist foreign policy on 2020. The scope will explain start from the Swedish foreign policy launch until the 5 years of the implementation, and also the Swedish feminist foreign policy become a rule as a feminist country on European Union countries, although there are still pros and cons to the feminist foreign policy that adopted by Sweden. And the next is France is involved to implementing their gender equality in France international strategy, also updating their gender and international assistance policy in 2018. European Parliament have an agenda where majority choose gender equality in European Union's foreign and security policies in 2020. And next is the research method. So in here, my research method will be divided into 3 parts, which is the data analysis method, data collection, and data source. In here, for data analysis method, the foreign policy that Sweden apply in improving the gender equality, known as the Swedish feminist foreign policy, according to the Margot Wallström statement that their feminist government will become the strongest global voice for the gender equality in the world. The method that I will use in this research is the qualitative method. According to some scholars, qualitative research itself intends to deeply explore, understand, and interpret social phenomena. By using the qualitative research, I will explore the why and how of the situation and how could the situation happen. Qualitative research is method that seeks the answer to question and involve the evidence by adopt information full of journals, books, and also the article from the related scholars. This method will help me to do research about the study case how Swedish feminist foreign policy will improve the gender equality in European Union countries, especially the strategies and the impact of Swedish feminist foreign policy through the EU countries and EU Parliament. The journal that come from the related literature also help me to findings a lot of information about Sweden circumstance in declare feminist foreign policy. The next is data collection. I already said that this research will use the qualitative research method, which most possible to collect all the information from the journals, book articles, and also the video that are from related scholars. Technique for data collection are close to analysis in general. I use the secondary data strategies to analyze and accompanied by the processing of data. The first, I will monitor the data center percentage charts of gender equality in Sweden and EU countries. And the second, a deeper search is needed to improve the understanding of the relationship between foreign policy and gender equality. Third, describe of the content to find more related resource source for the case. And the fourth, be aware of the external factors. For example, like the unanticipated parties will affect the research and analysis of the role of Sweden in improve gender equality by feminist foreign policy. And the last step is the processing of information, which is then the information will suitable to the research study. And the last is data resource. Data known as analysis, object knowledge, and data that I will provide in this analysis are the data that can provide the required details in research phase. There are two types of data, namely primary and secondary data. The data source included in the present study are secondary details about the Swedish feminist foreign policy role in improving gender equality nationally and internationally. So that's all the presentation from me about the research methodology of Sweden effort to improve gender equality in international aspect through the Swedish feminist foreign policy. If there's any mistaken, I would like to say sorry. And if you have any question or you want to comment something about my presentation, please just write your comment below in comment section. Thank you.